From WBRN Radio in Boston and on the Boston Red Network, our episode, The Great Boondoggle, the Trump Wall. It was inspired by the latest move from the Democratic opposition in the Senate to abandon the wall as a quote-unquote bargaining chip to incorporate the Dreamers, the young people brought here by their parents as immigrants. And that out of the way, now the wall is exposed for what it is. We'll start with the Washington Post, and then we'll talk a little bit about the wall. In other developments here on the Boston Red Network, we are working on Davos, the World Economic Forum. We're covering it from many angles. There are demonstrators there demonstrating against the visit of DJ Trump on Friday. One of our episodes will be concerned with risks. Will there be an economic crisis in 2018? There are two panels that we have edited there, and we have many different opinions there. Some bankers on the panel, Mr. Rodolph of Harvard, Ken Rodolph, and his associate had written books on the crisis, and we'll look to them. The Bloomberg people are playing an important role in the World Economic Forum, for good or for bad, and we have been doing this for over 10 years, back in the day when we went through the press office exclusively at the World Economic Forum. But we have many position papers, etc., from the World Economic Forum, and you'll be getting those this week, some on Numbers Man, others on BR on the World, or Boston Red on the World. We'll bring those to you. So we have today's activity, and we'll start getting those up as we move along also with the other events of the day. We'll go now to the wall, and then we'll move on to the latest events surrounding the humorous Garrison Keillor and the public radio station in Minnesota. And we'll try to make some sense of it. But on a top note here, there is much information yet to come out. Garrison Keillor sent out a reply to the public radio laying out the case against him. And we'll see where this goes. But first, we'll start with the Washington Post and their story on Chuck Schumer. He just basically rescinded the offer on funding of the notorious wall. They had promised Trump, that in various figures bantied about, $25 million for the new wall in exchange for permanent protection for some undocumented workers, as the Post calls them. News decision came as Schumer was facing a backlash. We talked about that on the last production. Trump tweeted, as usual, crying Chuck Schumer fully understands, especially after his humiliating defeat, if there is no wall, there is no DECA. We must have safety, security together with a strong military for our great people. We'd ask why. The people are great without those particular aspects, and we'll go into some of the articles here have been written about the wall and the boondoggle to begin with. Some Republicans have blinked at the administration's request for $18 million to pay it off. That was basically what it would be, and he said that Mexico would finance it, which is a pipe dream on the part there. Now, they have till the 8th of February to work this out once again. Period. And various people, including Twitter King Booker, there's a debate whether Twitter King has been deposed by DJ Trump. He's a potential presidential candidate and a full-time sellout. Says he trusts Dick Schumer a lot. Well, so what? The act, which is set to expire on the 5th of March, and it is up in the air as to with what they will actually come up with anything. Period. We'll see. Now they had agreed that most of the $25 billion would be appropriated at the start and more doled out in the future. That's according to People for Me. With the agreement, it would have been a good agreement for DJ Trump. He would have got his wall, he would have got his money, and he could hire more border agents to go out and steal the water from people just trying to get to a place to make a better living. Period. So this is it. Kelly, the chief of staff, is in one situation last week that a cement wall from sea to a shining sea would not be built. Instead, he said a wall along the entire span. We need 700 more miles of barrier. They have somewhat of a wall already out there. Let's go to some of the information already written here. This is from Bloomberg. Trump's wall, a wasteful, foolish boondoggle. This is an editorial opinion. It doesn't say when it was. I always have problems with these characters when they don't date their stuff. But anyway, we'll use it. Promises only to stop at least. Wall has already stopped at least one Mexican from entering the U.S. That is President Enrique Peña Nieto, who canceled his trip. The state of relations between Mexico and the U.S. is very tenuous, to say the least. Period. This is written early in the ball game. It's a plan for a wall, a 2,000-mile wall, literally. And this was their editorial here. David Shipley evidently wrote it. The mere prospect is already disrupting relationships with Mexico. No doubt about that. And it will continue to. Now, the boondoggle of Trump's wall, this is from High Country News. I'm not sure who High Country News is. California is often the first state in the West to test new solutions to social and environmental problems. These days, the state is at the fore of a much more ambitious challenge, as we find its progressive ideas and increasingly diverse citizenship in frequent opposition to the policy of DJ Trump. Every month, letters from the letter from California, we chronicle efforts in the side to grapple with the changing role of the West. And this is written on the 9th of August 2017. On the 7th day of his presidency, Trump raised a series of with various people. I would appeal to you for us to allow a room to look for a new solution between our countries. That's Peña Nieto told Trump. After a couple of minutes, the polite back and forth, Trump powled with the Mexican president. Stopped saying Mexico won't pay for the wall. You'll see a picture of a wall on ours. Since 2008, I've been reporting on the southwest border from central Texas to southern California, with a particular interest in the way the flow of culture, goods, and ideas have overridden man-made territorial divisions. The wall is a boondoggle. It's no barrier to criminal networks, which often by bribing border officials at regular checkpoints and smuggle individuals inside car trunks for at least $15,000 a head. What's proper business if you can get it? Like the one that was found with dozens of bodies in San Antonio, Texas. The Department of Homeland Security has estimated a new wall would cost $21.6 million, not including the maintenance of the wall. Senate Democrats estimate the initial price to be as high as $70 billion. Unsurprisingly, our southern neighbor has refused to fulfill Trump's order. Almost 700 miles of different kinds of fencing already exist along the border, the 2,000-mile border there, of different kinds of women. President Barack Obama, law enforcement along the border, has increased. Migrants and drugs that can be still smuggled across the border, but on increasingly dangerous circumstances. Despite obstacles, the border region refuses to be clearly divided. And it goes on to talk about the San Ysidro-Tijuana border crossing in California, for instance, is the world's busiest. Is the interest point to binational region with a gross national product of more than $220 billion. That's San Diego, incidentally. Every day it's traveled by approximately 63,000 pedestrians, 120,000 passenger vehicles, and 6,000 trucks. The border crossing includes Mexican day laborers who return home at dark, young people who commute for hours to attend a college in San Diego, American citizens visiting family members in Mexico, small business owners, etc., retirees living in Baja California, Mexico, coming home for a spell. One of the big places to go. The San Diego Tijuana border is truly a microcosm of all the dynamics in globalization that was inflicted on the world's most vulnerable demographic. Founder Forman of UCL of USC San Diego Cross-Border Initiative told me, "We have always believed that the wall and the border region were more generally is a site of cultural, artistic, and architectural experimentation." Hadn't heard it called that before. In 2004, Forman and her co-director, urbanist Terry Cruz, had collaborated on various grassroots efforts to encourage otherwise difficult transnation exchange of ideas. Their so-called community stations, pilots for new cross-border collaboration, have yielded a great civic engagement. The prospect of even bigger law enforcement presence at the border and a seemingly ugly, thick, and costly wall threatens to make such partnerships more difficult. There's obviously a lot of fear and uncertainty in the border communities in which we work, Forman told me, but the current wave of fear-mongering that originated at the White House has only emboldened Forman and her partners as they try to scale up their experiment in bio-nation cooperation. Here's one of the persistent problems that antagonistic border policies can't fix: the wastewater from Tijuana, informally, and I don't know why I mispronounced it, Tijuana informally settlements that flow in to the San Diego aquifers and water reserves. The need for cross-border municipal water planning is urgent and requires an urban policy. So there are things that need to be done that are not being done. And that in itself is a big, big problem. This high country news, incidentally, is out of Pomona, Colorado. And so it's interesting to get a different standpoint here from... Who is this from? Well, we'll find out in a minute here. Anyway, 5 problems put forward by this. Lots of undocumented immigrants already here. We know that. But the new Homeland Security data reveals that the main source of illegal immigration to the U.S. are people who arrive legally and overstay their visas. They estimate that 45 million immigrants who enter the U.S. by air, by sea, or on tourist or business visas that expired in 2015. Roughly 416,000 were still living in the country in 2016. DHS has not released that data, so the total number of overstays in 2016 is likely much higher by comparison with 2011-2016. Apprehension at the southern borders range from 328,000 to 479,000 per year, a little under 500,000. That has been moved to fix the problem since 1996. Congress has passed several laws maintaining biometric entry exit screening for foreign nationals, which would help track overstayed visas. To expedite the completion and implementation of biometrics. This came from the DJ Trump administration for all travelers to the U.S. Regardless, a new wall isn't going to do anything to help. 2, cartels can outsmart checkpoints. There are only a dozen or so official ports of entry along the border. They are highly regulated and policed, but the cartels much prefer to exploit their predictability and rationality than to scatter resources across open, expensive deserts and rivers. Traffickers have carefully studied how the security operates in each checkpoint, which means they can observe and instantly respond to weaknesses such as inspectors are relaxing in order to speed up the flow of traffic. Cartels are clever and tactical in adjusting their behaviors, no doubt. 3. Terrorists aren't undocumented. There is no evidence that any terrorist has ever entered the U.S. on the Mexican border. Period. As for those terrorists who are foreign-born, according to a list compiled by Alex Noroshoff, of the 154 foreign-born people who committed or plotted terrorist acts on U.S. soil from 1975 to 2008, only one was Mexican. I wouldn't doubt that one. The main reason people risk undocumented entry is to find work. The Mexican recession of the 80s brought waves of undocumented immigrants to the U.S. We remember those days. The day most Mexicans moving to the border intended to stay in Mexico and work in the booming local manufacturing, health, and education industry. But Mexico's economy is now showing a sign of stress. Border communities suffer most disruption since the first wall appeared in 2006. That was under G.W. Bush. And 5 immigrant courts are already overwhelmed. Collateral damage caused by a broken immigration system is the most clearly evident in those courts. Barack Obama continued to raise and reach record highs of 400,000 annually during his second term, and he increased the number of judges adjudicating these cases, shifted attention from minor offenses, but the problem of crushing caseload persists. In 2016, the backlog of cases reached 474,000 and climbing to 533,000 in 2007. So they're basically breaking there. Trump's announced his intention to target 3 million more people for deportation. This happens, the courts will just simply grind to a halt. And this is Professor Michael Deere, is Professor Emeritus, the College of Environmental Design at the University of California, Berkeley. So we got this information out here. This is from Politico. All right. Anyway, to our next story of the day, we go back to the Washington Post. Garrison Keillor wasn't fired for touching a woman's bare back, according to this headline here. And much has been said about this. NPR sent out a lengthy letter. We won't read it here. We'll probably append it. But the allegations she provided to NPR, she did not allege that he had touched her back, but claimed that he engaged in unwanted sexual touching. It's a 12-page letter. It has not been scrutinized by the public, period. They hired an outside firm to conduct the investigation. That's at least what NPR says. Separately from statements by the organization's management, journalists published a lengthy article on Tuesday based on interviews with more than 60 people. This is from the NPR News of the station. Described a years-long pattern of behavior that left several women working for Keillor feeling on Now, this is a long letter here. We'll just get to the last part. This is from the head there, the woman who made the allegations worked for Garrison on the Perry Home Companion, which was produced by his media company. She did not work for NPR. She did not allege that Garrison touched her back, but did claim he engaged in other unwanted sexual touching. Now, the letter was dated the 22nd of October, 2017, 12 pages there, written by her lawyer, no doubt. And how long had NPR known about the allegations? Well, they claim they didn't. August is when 2017. Did NPR provide Garrison or any, or was this with due process? Due process was deliberate, diligent, including Garrison. It's strange how they worded this. They said that due process was deliberate, diligent, and included Garrison. Lastly, means providing a notice of allegations, opportunity to respond to them. Garrison was informed of the allegations. He responded to them with his attorney present. When NPR received the detailed letter of allegations in late October, they promptly informed the board. The board decided to appoint a special trustee committee of 4 widely respected board members. They don't say who they were. Were Garrison's emails and phone texts reviewed. The attorney had several conversations with Garrison Keillor's attorney, seeking the emails, etc. Garrison and his attorneys were asked multiple times for access to Garrison's computer, emails, and texts. They would have been fools to give them. To date, all requests related to this matter had been refused. Had unfairly tarnished Garrison's reputation. Has operated its own private media company for years. We appreciate his many contributions to NPR. I discussed our requests for a careful transition with Garrison personally on the phone the evening of the 28th of November. The next morning, Garrison emailed the media claiming he was fired by NPR. Since then, Garrison has posted statements to social media and suggested that NPR did not handle these matters thoughtfully. The irony is that while NPR has been careful to protect Garrison's privacy and not heard any decision, others have rushed to judge and criticize NPR. If these allegations are true, doesn't NPR have a responsibility to reveal the allegations and identity of the people involved? The woman has made the allegations, has not publicly identified herself, and has not made her allegations public. Garrison also chose not to make the Pacific allegation public. We respect that decision. Maybe quibbling. If NPR were to identify the woman making the allegations, or if NPR would release details she claimed took place, we believe that would risk discouraging workers and associates with NPR from reporting harassment. That's a lie. How many complaints has NPR received about Garrison Keillor? Received 2 formal complaints, both making allegations about behavior in the workplace. One of the individuals is a woman who claimed his behavior was directed at her. The other individuals claimed to have known about some. Oh boy, hearsay. Why is NPR so ungrateful to Keillor for his many years of service? He's one of the most talented, creative. We all know that. Garrison Keillor has been an important part. We all know that. Why did NPR and public access to online archives of and the Writer's Almanac end? Garrison Keillor owns the legal rights and trademark to them, which is good. Unfortunately, this means NPR cannot gain public access. Hopefully, Mr. Keillor will open that up. Why did NPR take so long to disclose the news? Once the woman's attorney notified NPR the allegations against Garrison, he noticed they used their first name, we began a formal process. In addition, he entered into mediation discussions earlier this month in good faith and tried to reach an agreement with Garrison and the other parties involved in this matter. Unfortunately, mediation sessions had not produced the final settlement we hoped. NPR was restrained in telling our story until we had the benefit of the facts from the outside investigator and had participated in the mediation process. I guess that is gone now. Do they head to court? We don't know. The final decision we made to end our contracts with Garrison was informed by our values, accountable to the facts and honoring bedrock. Well, as we wrap up our year-long celebration of the 50th anniversary, we are excited about the future and new program initiatives. Thank you for your confidence. Doesn't say very much right there. So that was basically the email that they sent out. And he goes on to talk about the woman, our friendship in frequent emails about our kids and travels and family things that continued to list my show and beyond. As she signed her emails, I love you. Well, it's not unusual. I know people that women that tell me that they love me. It's just pro forma. It doesn't mean anything. I love you, and asked if her daughter could be hired to work here, and so forth. She attended the last show in Los Angeles. She still features it, Prairie Home Companion, on her Facebook page. When she take it down after this came out here? If I'm guilty of harassment, then every employee who stole a pencil is guilty of embezzlement. I am honest fiction writer, and I still tell this story. I will tell this story in a novel. Another woman claims she got a $16,000 check. Another longtime writer for the show said she wound up having a year-long affair with Keela in 2007, 2008, 10 years ago. And the writer said she received a $16,000 check from the company, Prairie Home Companion Productions, to keep quiet. Well, we don't know what she got it, but by the time I had already talked to some friends about what had happened. I wonder, could I be sued for that? That's why she didn't take the money. Anyway, she'll be in the National Enquirer. Who knows? Another former staffer said she received an email from a year or two after she stopped working for the show, in which her married boss suggested it was a good night for a romantic stroll and sharing a kiss. Now, see, this is the newspaper itself being very unfair and editorializing in what would be a news story. In the interview Tuesday, NPR president said, well, we already went through that. And it debuted in 1974, the Prairie Home Companion, and it was heard on more than 700 public radio stations, reaching an audience of about 4 million. He retired actually in 2016. NPR says it has 133,000 members. 153 canceled their memberships. That's not very many. McTaggart is the one that wrote the letter. And the writer who said that she had an affair with him was flattered when she got the email from him that included a reference to the sex. She admitted her boss and admired him, in his writing. She was astonished by the amount of care he put into a simple email. Everything he writes is a beautiful piece of writing, the former NPR employee said. There is a talent pouring out of him. She thought the reference to sex was intended to placate her interest, but placate, excuse me. She said that she would be interested if she were interested in having an affair with a man twice her age. She was. She said the relationship was consensual, but also it felt a pressure to say yes. A little bit of who said, she said in the interview. Let's see. The woman said that she did not complain because she thought it would be taken seriously by Kate Gustafson, a longtime manager of Prairie Home Interview Gustafson declined to say whether an employee complained about Garrison Keillor. And here's where he responded. We'll get that one in here. Basically, the committee's letter to listeners was a response to a bazaar of listener anger, all of it richly deserved. After NPR expunged the show that people loved, and the listeners smelled a rat. Listeners know me far better than NPR management does, and they know that I am not abusive. Management, when it heard a complaint back in October, they did not have the good manners to call me or any employee of 50 years, an employee of 50 years, he'd been there, and sat down face to face with me if it had happened. If they had done the simple, courageous thing, this all would have been avoided. In response to the many so-called intrusions in the short space, the woman who complained was a friend and had been hired as a freelance researcher, an employee of mine, and not NPR, working a job that she did from home by email. Hardly ever saw her in the office. Our friendship continued in frequent emails about our kids and travel, and continued to my last show and beyond. She signed her emails, "I love you," and I asked if her daughter, to be hired. This is a little bit of repeating here. Her complaint was drawn up by her lawyer, which always happens in these instances, incidentally, and highly selective and imaginative piece of work. NPR depended on the complaint. It never spoke to me or to the complainant. It's kind of interesting there. If this is actually factual, we'll find out. And this goes on to the pencil gag. I'm an honest fiction writer, and I will tell this story in a novel. As from Garrison Keillor, how he closed it all out. So let's get to sports here. The Trump Boondoggle, very interesting report in itself here, and you'll go to NPR. And we'll start with the NBA from last night. The Kings were at the Magic. Kings 105-99. The Nets were at the Thunder. Thunder 109-108. A 1-point game there over the Nets of Brooklyn. The Cavaliers and Spurs in San Antonio. Spurs 114-102. The Knickerbockers and Warriors in California. Warriors 123-112. And the Celtics and Lakers in Los Angeles. Another 1-point game. Lakers 108-107. And to college basketball, jump around a little bit here. Providence in number 1, Villanova, 89, Villanova to 69, and number 18, Clemson, number 2, Virginia. It wasn't a contest. Virginia 61-36. Number 4, Duke and Wake Forest. Duke 84-70. Number 5, Kansas, and number 12, Oklahoma. And Oklahoma pulled that one out 85-80. No doubt a spirited contest. Oklahoma State and the Texas Tech Red Raiders, they are ranked 14, 75-70. And finally, the Vanderbilt and Tennessee out of Nashville, no doubt, 67 Tennessee to 62 from Vanderbilt. On to the National Hockey League. The Devils were at the Bruins. Bruins pulled that one out 3-2. The Hurricanes at the Penguins. Our Penguins 3-1. Pittsburgh rocks on. Oops. We don't want to rock on too much. The Avalanche and Canadiens. Canadiens 4-2. The Flyers and Red Wings of Detroit. Flyers 3-2. Of Philadelphia. The Senators and Blues. The Blues in St. Louis. The Senators were shut out 3-0. The Lightning and Predators. Lightning 4-3. The Tampa Bay Lightning and the Nashville Predators. The Panthers and Stars in Dallas. Stars 6-1. The Sabres and Oilers. The Sabres shut out the Edmonton Oilers. And the Sabres are in, of course, Buffalo. The Kings and the Canucks. Canucks 6-2 was the final there. The Blue Jackets and Golden Knights of Las Vegas. Golden Knights 6-3 over the Blue Jackets of Columbus, Ohio. So the National Hockey League's business strategy is put a league in every town, or close, or hamlet or village. The Rangers and Ducks of Anaheim, Ducks 6-3 over the Rangers of New York. The Jets and Sharks, Jets 5-4 over the Sharks, San Jose Sharks, and the Winnipeg Jets. Winnipeg used to have a different team. I can't recall who it was at this time. Nonetheless, on the 24th of January 2018, The Great Boondoggle, Trump's Wall, is the episode here, and you hear it on many of our outlets. Some machinations are going on with some, but others they continue on, so you can find us on Stitcher, on Spreaker, on YouTube, and various other places. We're coming, incidentally, to Android very soon here. We need to pick up outlets. As some outlets disappear, others pick up. That is, as they say, the game of this business. Good day.